We thank Mr. Wright for coming to visit with us tonight. Next up is Senator Bob Hall. Senator Hall is in Senate District 2. Yes, our neighbors to the west of us. As with Mr. Wright, we ask that all questions be held until Senator Hall has concluded and opened it up for questions. And we'll give you a little information, background information on Senator Hall. Senator Bob Hall is the father of 3 boys and husband to Kay Hall. Taught his family the importance of faith, family, and hard work. Senator Hall graduated from the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina with a degree in electrical engineering and received a regular commission as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force. While a cadet at the Citadel, he received numerous awards for leadership. He was the only Air Force cadet selected to be a battalion commander and was awarded the coveted Wade Hampton Sabre as the graduating cadet who had contributed the most to the Citadel during the 4 years he was a cadet, and was listed in Who's Who in American Colleges his senior year. Upon graduation, Bob began his active duty as a systems engineer working to develop the Minuteman missile system during the Cold War at Norton Air Force Base in California, where he achieved the rank of captain. After the Air Force, he worked in the aerospace industry as a systems engineer and business development manager. In 1982, he left the corporate world and began working as an independent proposal consultant to aerospace and defense corporations. Then in 1984, he formed his own company, Professional Proposal Management, Inc., which remains a family-owned small business today. A compelling sense of duty, shaped by his military service, business experience, and love for this great country, drives him to leave behind the legacy of a patriotic servant for his children and grandchildren. Envisioning their futures compelled him to become actively involved in the state's political process, and he strongly believes it is time to stand in the gap for our children, our liberties, and our future. Please help me welcome Senator Bob Hall.
Stacey, can I use that other mic?
Sure.
There, because I need to stand over on this side since the clicker isn't working. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to come talk with you. Before I get started, though, a couple people I'd like to introduce to you. First, our District Director, Destin Kucinski, is in the Canton office. And, of course, the one person that I could not be here unless she was behind me, pushing me all the way, my wife, Kay, my #1 critic. And, I can tell you some stories there to back that up, so that's not an idle comment. It is guaranteed that not only does she tell me that I have the right tie or not on in the morning when I leave, but she watches every committee hearing and every floor session, takes copious notes, and the first thing I hear when I walk through the door at night, when she stays in Austin with me, is what I should have said. And so, anyway, I'm just humbled and blessed to have this opportunity. I never expected to be in politics. I have to admit, I'm actually a recovering political apathetic, because for many years I never paid attention to politics. And I woke up back right after we retired, we're building our retirement home, and I went to a Tea Party meeting, the first Tea Party meeting in Van Zandt County, and it got my attention. And all of a sudden I realized that my generation, and I see some of you here that belong to that generation, if we don't change things, we're going to be remembered as the first generation of Americans to leave a country worse, in worse shape than what we got. Because we inherited it from the greatest generation that lived through the Depression, took up arms, beat the 2 biggest armies in the world, came back, put away their weapons, built the greatest nation the world had ever seen, very little debt. We had God in our schools, God in our courts, God in our government, God in our homes, God in our churches. And look at us today. Nationally, we're in debt $20 trillion, and we're no better off here in Texas. We're $330 billion in debt in the state of Texas, and we let God go from everything, barely hanging on to Him in our churches and our homes. And that's a terrible thing we're doing to the next generation. Absolutely, I call it reprehensible. because it's the worst form of taxation without representation that ever has been. You think King George was bad with the exercise? He was nothing compared to what we, I say we, I'm talking about us sitting in this room and all the other people that have allowed to happen, is running up debt that generations to come will be paying for stuff that we're consuming that they will get no benefit from, but they'll have to pay it before they can feed their families or send their kids to college. And so that's the reason I got involved in this. It's not about me, and none of these elections should ever be about an individual. It needs to be about what we're doing for God and what we're doing for future generations, and not for ourselves in this. And so with that, before I get started, out in the Senate, we would call this a moment of personal privilege. And that is where a senator or a rep can stand up on the floor if they choose to and speak about anything they want to. And they're given that dispensation. In the Senate, it's unlimited. The House, they have some rules that are a little different on that side. And this is something